Hi everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp and to the episode where I go over what I think are the best sales on the Nintendo Switch eShop this week. Firstly, here's our winner from last week. Nice one. What a delightfully normal comment. As I was perusing, I saw it and simply had to choose you. Well done. Send me an email and I'll get you sorted out. Now I am currently, hopefully, on holiday, so this has been recorded nice and early, so I've probably missed a couple, but there's still some very good long-term deals on the eShop. And I'll go over a few little Savaloys, some cheaper ones, and maybe one to avoid right at the end. Alright, what are the best games? Well, my name's Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. Let's kick off then with the Eastward Beyond Two Worlds bundle, which includes the Eastward base game and the DLC, which is essentially Stardew Valley Eastward style, and is its own standalone experience. It even has its own menu, and it's great. I have a review of that on the channel. You're probably seeing some footage of it on the screen right now, but it does pretty much what I said on the tin. It's like Stardew Valley, but within the Eastward world. It still has events that take place at key moments, but you're building up your homestead, farming for crops, doing little jobs for people around the town, and I loved it. I think it's such a good setting and world for that type of game, and it feels perfectly fitting. It really does. It feels like it was always meant to be here. Now, alongside that, you obviously have the full Eastward game as well, which is like an action-adventure RPG set within this post-apocalyptic world that has this thing called the miasma that's gradually creeping across the land. Yeah, it's solid. I think it could have done with maybe a little bit more depth in some of the mechanics, but it is easy to pick up and play. You find different weapons, there's like a flamethrower in there and stuff, and just a very cool cast. I did enjoy it, and I'm quite surprised actually that we haven't had the sequel yet. I'm guessing that means that they are really putting some time into it, and you know, more power to them. So that's the Eastward bundle. That sale goes on until August the 4th at 43% off. If you already own one of the games, you can buy them individually. Untitled Goose game in the US region sees its biggest discount down 50%. This is one of those games that just gathered so much attention, didn't it? Everyone was really interested in the premise, the idea of playing as a mischievous goose. For some reason, there is something intrinsically enticing about that for me. And the fact that they went back and added in multiplayer mode so you can do two geese. It is geese, isn't it? Yeah, that sounds right. Playing the game together in co-op is really good. Now, if you've not played this or heard of it, essentially you go around performing different tasks, but they're not necessarily things people want. So you might steal someone's sandwich, or you'll have to figure out a way to open a gate, releasing animals into an area. Just mischievous, annoying little things that gradually push you through this very quaint little English town. And it's fun. It's just about the right length. It doesn't outstay its welcome. And it goes to show that you don't need a load of dialogue or heavily scripted action for something to be very enjoyable. Great game, and that sale goes all the way until August the 5th. Now, Hogwarts Legacy, the Deluxe edition here in the UK, is down to its cheapest ever price. This is getting down to some, like, you know, some decent value now. We're down to about 20 odd pounds for this one. And you may not realise this has actually had another patch recently. Now, obviously, I'm away, so you haven't had the all patched up episode, but I have been working on it, and this is another one that's going to be featured in there. I'm glad to see them keep working on it. I do think they need to lock out that frame rate, get it nice and fixed at 30, because when you're flying around and stuff, it does drop down. But the base Hogwarts Legacy experience is still very good. A massive RPG within this universe, and if you're a fan of that, then you're going to absolutely love it here. I'm not the biggest Potter fan, I've got to be honest. He's alright. He can fly around on his broom and do Spectro what's his face, so good on him. But even then, I can still appreciate good game design, and this has it. The review of this is the biggest on the channel, I think. It's like 700,000 views, which is ludicrous. So go check that out. I'll pop a link in the description. That sale goes on until August the 2nd. PAC Man World Re-Pac. Glen reviewed that on the channel, and it actually is a really good adventure. It takes the Pac-Man into like a 3D old school adventure style arena, and he really enjoyed it. He was surprised by how tight the controls were. He thought it was a nice way to take the series in a slightly different direction while still using many of his mechanics. And of course, it has the iconic ghosts. You'll be rescuing the various Pac fam, and there's a mode called Maze Mode that has a variety of different three-dimensional mazes. And when you complete the quest mode, you actually unlock the original Pac-Man style game. So yeah, loads of content in there for that price. I would say go check out Glen's review because it convinced me. Initially, I thought, yeah, this is going to be absolutely terrible. Hidden Layer Games INMOST is really nice. I love the art style, I have to be honest. From a completely superficial level, I was drawn in originally. I remember seeing it in a direct. I think it was right at the end, and I was like, oh, okay, that actually looks really interesting. It tells an emotive story over its 3 to 5 hour runtime, and there are 3 different characters that all play completely differently to one another. I guess you could call it a puzzle platformer, but not for a minute did I find it boring or dull. I love the way they wind those, or intertwine I should say, those 3 different characters' stories together. And for me it took 5 hours. I'm a bit of a slow reader, I have to be honest, and that was just bang on. It looks absolutely stunning, and for what, $4.49, 70% off until August the 5th, definitely one to consider. Unfortunately this one's US only. We don't even have this bundle in the EU, which sucks, and that's because I think Dying Light, you can't get it. It was that German thing, wasn't there, where they didn't allow it in that region. But the Dying Light Definitive Edition and Call of Juarez Gunslinger bundle together is 82% off. That matches the cheapest it's ever been. It's both of those games for just over $10, which is a ridiculously good deal. It does suck, as I say, that we don't have that over here, but it's not difficult to change your region. Buy the game and then go back and use your normal account. Like, it changes nothing. Your saves will all be in the same place. It's only when you come to re-download the game that you need to think about that. Dying Light is obviously a parkour inspired, and I should imagine they took some inspiration from things like Mirror's Edge back in the day. Open world zombie up RPG. I don't know what zombie up means, but I'm going with it. It also features an absolute wedge load of DLC. There's tons of stuff here, and the whole thing can be played co-op with a friend, although it really doesn't rely on co-op in my opinion. You don't need it. Now on the flip side of that, you've got Juarez Gunslinger, which is a first-person, much more linear shooter. A good game for sure. I did enjoy it. A few little lags here and there on Switch, but it generally looks quite nice. I think that's a great bundle, honestly. I have mentioned it once before, but yeah, just be aware, you will not get this unless you use the US region eShop. In the EU, though, we do have a very good discount on the House of the Dead remake, which is obviously the classic House of the Dead game, remade for the Switch. Now, I actually do have a light gun adapter for my Joy-Con, and if you get the right one, it works really well. I forget the name of it, but there's this really cheap light gun game you can get on Switch physically, and it comes with the gun attachment. It's Duck something. Oh my goodness. It's not like Duck Hunt, I can't remember what it is. But yeah, it's rubbish, the game's terrible, but just getting that little adapter so that you can use your Joy-Con in that way is worth it for the price. It's like a tenner or something like that. And then when you combine that with games like the House of the Dead remake, it's just perfect. Man, I really do miss old school light gun games, don't you? The ones that worked exactly as they should. Time Crisis was such a win back in the arcades. Smashing 20p pieces into the machine. You see that like red flash come up on the screen, you're desperately trying to dodge out of the way of the bullets. Man, good times. Wonder if you can get Time Crisis in VR. That would be like, yeah, alright. Anyway, I digress. The House of the Dead remake, that's down to its cheapest ever price until August the 14th. And there is a sequel coming. They're working on the sequel and bringing that across the Switch as well. So yeah, if you like light gun games or you're a little bit nostalgic for House of the Dead, consider checking that one out. Another bundle, we've got Wargroove 1 and 2 down 48% in a bundle until August the 4th. Now it is worth mentioning that that's in the EU. The US, you can buy the games individually on sale. So Wargroove 2, which is excellent, is down to its cheapest ever price at 30% off. But however you want to buy them. I was really impressed with Wargroove 2. I think the way that they have these different factions that you control, and the units are completely different, and there's also like storyline that's really woven into those stages to give them meaning and purpose. They're great games, really very good. But then you have things like the map maker, so you can create your own levels and campaigns and share them. It's a lot more than I thought we would get, and at this price, yeah, very good. Do check out my full review of that one, because it does also feature information about the co-op. It has multiplayer online modes, but that campaign editor is quality. But the best part of it is it also has a cutscene editor, so you really can try and create your own full campaigns. The bundle here in the EU goes on until August the 4th, but if you're picking up the games individually, those sales go on until August the 5th. Frost represents a collaboration between a few different indie developers who were pals and were like, hey, let's work on something together. The developer are called Deadpan Games, and this is brilliant. Now, it's a deck builder that has that delightful art style. You basically have to choose a hero card. Your hero has to survive the battles. If they die, it's game over. But they're from a number of different factions, and each faction has its own, benefits. Some of the mechanics in here, obviously with the title Wildfrost, they won't be surprising. Things like being able to snow the enemies, which stop them from being able to perform any of their attacks. And you work your way through what is essentially a roguelike campaign to reach the end boss. But here's the little kicker. When you beat the boss, which you invariably will do eventually, the units and the lineup that you use to beat the boss becomes the boss. So when you go back, you'll be fighting against yourself, essentially. So there's that double-edged sword, isn't there? You're like, man, I've got an incredibly powerful group, but you know full well that one day, you'll be facing it. They've released multiple patches since this came out. There were many things in my review about balancing that I wasn't happy with, and those have actually been addressed. So if you go and watch the review, just bear in mind that it has been improved. I'm sure I covered it in one all patched up episode, but it will be in the next one, so that might be worth hanging around for. Wildfrost matches its cheapest ever price, 30% off until August the 5th. Coming in at number 1 then, and it's a bit cheeky to call this a hidden gem. It's just a gem because it's only just come out, but I can guarantee that people will take one look at the title and they'll be like, no, and it won't do well, I'm sorry. That is terrible, isn't it? But sometimes these big long-winded titles don't help anyone. This is called Arranger, a role puzzling adventure. Just lose the role puzzling adventure. Like, it's not a good tagline. I mean, yes, it does what it says on the tin, but just call it Arranger, honestly. But it follows the story of Jemima, who is described as a small town misfit on a journey of self-discovery. What's very cool though, it's a bit like when you were a kid and you're like running along. Well, maybe it was just me. And you were running and you said to yourself, maybe I'm not actually moving. Maybe it's the world that's moving under me like a big treadmill. Was I the only kid that said that still maybe thinks that? But anyway, yeah, it's kind of like that. The world shifts and moves you around in that way. And you wouldn't think it, but it gives a very nice flow to the game and it just works brilliantly. As far as RPGs go, you're not worrying about statistics and things like that too much, or managing an inventory. It's just got a real sense of flow to it. Now, I believe there's multiplayer in this one, but I haven't actually done the multiplayer, so I cannot attest to how that works. Very solid and actually quite unique game, this one. Well worth checking out. That sale, 10% off, goes on until August the 8th. A developer to support, I would say. That then takes us onto our Savoy selection, our Fetcooks, our very cheap games, whereby we could add to our backlog or we could buy, I don't know, a sausage or something. Now, I love Rive. It's a great game. It's 87% off or 93% off here in the UK, taking it down to 94 pence. That's a real bargain. I love this one. You've got this little spider tank that you can control. It's 60 FPS. You can hack the enemies in the game and actually control them. You've got different special attacks and armor that you can upgrade. It's got a cool story. There's a speedrun mode if you want to go down that path. And it also has multiplayer for what, less than £1? Yes, please. Blade of Darkness, aka Severance, has been dropping and now it's down 81% to $2.80. A classic game, 3 different main protagonists, and I used to play this on PC, slice the limbs off enemies. It was the first to use like these real-time dynamic shadows, and it looked amazing back in the day. And I still like it, now it just feels retro. One of my Savoy pickups for the week is a game called Wapo Definitive Edition. I saw it on Deku Deals and was like, yeah, that's not too shabby at all. As the blurb states, you're exploring the wondrous world of wums, fnackers, and other strange creatures. Yeah, you don't want to say fnackers too quickly. You're trying to help resolve an ancient conflict. What I will say is this has a cracking soundtrack. And so far, in the 27 minutes I've been playing it, it was worth my, about £1. Gigarek Alt is down 92%. Not a perfect game, but one I'd be willing to buy at this price. It's pretty hectic to say the least, with very fast-paced platforming and combat, and some physics-based puzzles in there as well. But yeah, not a perfect game. Definitely one I'd be watching a review of if it was at a normal price, but at this price, it's one of those little, yeah, I can accept that it's going to have a few flaws. Then Flat Heroes, which I think is such a gem. Most of you are going to look at this and be like, no, there's no way that can be good. This doesn't play anything like it looks. It feels a lot more like something like Super Meat Boy. There are like 300 different levels. There are actual boss fights in here as well. It has drop-in, drop-out co-op. There are 10 boss fights, as I say. Yeah, check out my review if you're interested, because, yeah, as I say, you might look at that and be like, no. Brilliant. Great music. feels so good to control and absolutely brutal as well when you get further in. Alright, finally then, before we look at an avoid, you've got Unicorn Overlord, the physical edition, at Amazon in both the EU and the US regions at its cheapest ever price. That takes it down to £20.97 or about $30 odd over in the US. This is probably one of the best games of the year. Well, easily. And I missed it off my best games of the year list, which is ludicrous. So it's going to go into the next one. But yeah, check out the full review. This is Vanillaware at their absolute finest. Amazing game. One of those cross-genre experiences where you're kind of building up an army. You can really focus on individual units, mercenaries, take over towns, and then fight in that tactical combat. But it has some freedom in where you go to next and what area you try and overtake. It's just brilliant. It's just so well designed. Those battles are excellent, featuring mixtures of real-time and turn-based. There are 60 different characters, you can recruit them, bump them off. Yeah, it's just top tier. So if you're after a very good physical, then do consider that one. If I had to pick a game to avoid, I think it would come with some caveats, because Mutant Year Zero is a great game, there's no two ways about it. But unfortunately on Switch it just looks bad, like the visuals are bad, very blurry. So if you can play it anywhere else, do it. It's not to say it's not a good game, but you would need to be able to deal with these Vaseline-like visuals. And that's it. Hopefully this far in advance that was still a decent little lineup for you and you enjoyed the video. But as I say, I am finally on holiday, so it might not be quite as up to date as it could have been. Still, I cannot miss you on a Sunday. It's just got to be done. Thank you to our Patreons, our members, all of you that enjoy the content, for supporting us as well. And as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!